Welcome to the Walk in Victory podcast, where we sit you at the feet of the masters. My name is Carla, and I'm excited to introduce you to our host NaRon Tillman, recording from the bustling borough of Queens, New York. On this show, we dive deep into the journeys of individuals who have overcome tremendous challenges to achieve their goals. Through their stories, we hope to provide you with inspiration, guidance, and strategies for your own journey towards victory. So get ready to learn from the masters themselves as we explore the triumphs and struggles that make success possible. Let's dive in. And now here's our host, NaRon Tillman.
Good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, NaRon Tillman, and you are with me for another of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory walks, there was a time period in my life where I did therapy, and it was necessary. Growing up in a religious context, we think God is going to just take care of everything. But when you get older, you realize that there's some things that you have to work through. And when I was in my sessions, I remember doing some hypnotic work. Now, I'm always going to be transparent. I was one who didn't really understand hypnosis. So I came up with a lot of my preconceived ideologies that may have come from other people. So it wasn't like I made them off my own. I just heard someone say about hypnosis or took what someone else's personal experience, whether it was their experience or not, or or I don't even know if it even came from a religious context where you like hear some preacher say something about something and then you hold on to it. Whatever it is, but I brought it to the table. And I remember when my therapist asked me, would I pretend to it? Now, here it is. I'm already breaking the law of normal. Businessman turned preacher who now is into mindfulness and yoga. And I'm sitting down with a therapist talking about doing hypnosis. So I figured, what the heck? So one of my fears with the whole hypnosis is that they can get into you, like you wind up becoming something that you wasn't. But this, you don't become what you like. Whatever's in you is going to come out of you. And I would talk about my experience with hypnosis was freeing. Right? If you go out for drinks, you don't drink too much, but you drink just enough to tell a person how you really feel. Yeah, but before you get belligerent and you want to start fighting and stuff like that, but you're just like happy and you're just being like free.
Yeah.
Without the bill, and without the hangover. That was my experience. And now I'm watching online and I see all of these guys, and I follow some of them because some more are funny, and they're using hypnosis in a way for entertainment, which diminishes kind of the value. It's like when I watch little kids preach, it diminishes the value of the office to me. Is you're saying anyone could do it, or you're just making light of the craft. And my respect for people who have learned the craft of hypnosis went through the roof, because I really do understand the psychosomatics and the powerful impact that it can have in helping you to unravel some things in your subconscious that you probably wouldn't necessarily tap into without having that aid. So it's not something that is hocus pocus and be fearful of, but it's just another tool in a person's toolbox if you have access to, that can help you tap into some things that you wouldn't necessarily tap into, because there's some stuff that's within us subconsciously in our nervous system that we store away, that we probably don't even remember happened, information that we have tucked away in our bodies. We store most of our history in our bodies. And when we retell those stories, we may add something to it. We may take something away from it to make us feel better about the story, especially if we want to be the hero in the story. And even for business, for those of you who are listening, when you have problems of overcoming certain aspects of business, whether it be being a disciplinarian or having to lay people off or having to make tough decisions. Some people just don't have that resolve in them, and it's something that's blocking us from being able to do that. And being able to talk through that stuff is really helpful. So it was helpful for me, and this is probably some of you guys' first time hearing me even talk about that I went through these processes. But it takes a lot to really build and overcome, especially when you're starting behind the 8 ball and you're told to tuck away feelings and emotions, and hypnosis, acupuncture, and all of those things that I've done has helped me to realize is that there's more than one way to tap into healing, mental and spiritual growth, and all of those things. And we can't just be fearful of things that are allotted to us. How you doing, Craig?
Hi, NaRon. I'm doing well.
Well, thank you, first of all, so much for coming on to our podcast.
Yeah.
And if you would like to tell the audience a little bit about either yourself and what you do, and we'll jump right into it.
Yeah. I'm a hypnotherapist. And so I'm excited to talk with you because I love the way you explain it's a great tool to have in your toolbox. It's not the only tool you need in your toolbox, but it's a great one to have on your side. My name is Craig Meriwether. I'm a hypnotherapist in Flagstaff, Arizona, but because of the reach of Zoom and Skype and all these other StreamYard and all these other virtual video communication systems, I can reach people around the country and around the world. And so it's been a real interesting last 5 years or so since COVID, switching from an in-person, which I still do, but being able to work with people over video. Because hypnosis, and like you were saying, there's a lot of baggage to that term, that word, and to this modality. And it's unfortunate because it can help a lot of people. I grew up in the Episcopal Church. I was born into the Episcopal Church, and I went to a Baptist-run school from 6th grade to 12th grade. And those are two opposing viewpoints in a lot of areas. And so there's a lot of feeling like a tug of war a little bit sometimes growing up in those two very different systems. But there seems to be an underlying fear of this work. And I felt that even growing up in the church. And it's unfortunate because I think it gets portrayed in movies and TV shows just as a way to move the plot point forward in a really quick way. How are we going to get Jason Bourne to assassinate the prime minister? It's like, oh, we'll hypnotize him. It's like, okay, that'll save us about 20 minutes of film and $5 million in training. And so they just, use it in that way. It's not the way it works. And as you were pointing out, NaRon, the comedy shows, the entertainment shows don't help either. They're fun. They're amusing. If you're going to Las Vegas or Atlantic City or wherever, just a comedy club in your town, they're fun. But you have to remember that everybody that goes up on stage, if they're doing one of those shows, volunteered to be up there. And you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. And in fact, you'll maybe see some of those shows where somebody gets excused from the stage because they don't want to be up there. Maybe their friends made them go up there. Their kids made them go, yeah, Dad, go up there. You go up there and be on stage. And they get harassed into being up there. And okay, fine, I'll go up there. And they don't want to be up there. So they're not going to be a good candidate for that show. They get stage fright. They think it's a good idea. And then they get up there and they see 100 people, 500 people staring at them with bright lights on their face. Yeah, they don't want that either. So they're going to be excused from the stage because they're not going to do well in the show. You want to do it. Not only did you buy a ticket to the show, you sat down in your seat, but you raised your hand to volunteer and they pick you. And then you go up there and they say, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? And do you want to go in hypnosis and have a fun show? And then all of a sudden you're singing like Elvis Presley and dancing like Michael Jackson and pretending you're Beyonce or you're on a roller coaster or something. And people say, oh my God, they're making them do it. They want to do that. And so then it goes to wonder, what if you want to heal? What if you want to get better? And what's fascinating about this work, and I think you touched upon it a little bit, this work is done with the unconscious mind. And just real quickly, because I know we don't have a whole lot of time, and it takes 10 years to get a PhD in neuroscience and psychology and things like that. But in just like a couple of minutes, we're dealing with two parts of mind in this work. And it's the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, that's that part of mind that's running our immune system, running our digestive system, how we grow from day one to being an adult without having to think about or do anything about it. It's running, beating our heart, splitting the cells in our body. And that, of course, is a big part of subconscious mind. It's also holding on to those habits that we have, habits of walking down the street, riding a bicycle, tying our shoes, zipping up our jacket, those kind of things. But it's also there to protect us and keep us safe. That's its main job, is survival, which doesn't necessarily mean happy and successful. It just means alive and safe. And one of the ways it does this is by holding on to old hurt and pain that we experience in our life. And whether that happened yesterday, or that happened last month, or that happened 10 years ago, or that happened 40 years ago, when it happened you're near 2 years old. It's got to hold on to that because it doesn't want to experience it again. It's not mean. It's not against you. It's for you. And it's trying to protect you by holding on to these files like in a big filing cabinet. And as we bring in information, as we go throughout our day, through our five senses, what we hear, see, taste, touch, smell through our five senses, if anything triggers, maybe it's a loud voice in the next office at work. Somebody's getting an argument on the phone and it triggers us because we remember being a little kid and our parents arguing. Or you're driving down the street and off in your peripheral vision, you see a red pickup truck. And because you're in a car accident when you're 12 years old with a red pickup truck, it's all happening unconsciously because it wants to keep you safe. And it's trying to warn you that there's danger. Now, if you're in a building and somebody pulls a fire alarm, the sirens go off, the lights go off, warning everybody that there's danger, you need to get to safety. We also have a warning system, but instead of lights and sirens, we have feeling states. The feeling state of anxiety, the feeling state of anger, the feeling state of fear is warning us that there's danger. This is that thing and it's great. We want to keep that. That's that thing that keeps you from walking down the dark alley at midnight, even though it's a shortcut home. Keep to the lighted streets, keep to the crowded streets. That's the thing that keeps you from peering over the edge of the Grand Canyon too far. That's the fear that keeps you here in Arizona. You walk down in the desert down south, you're going to run into a rattlesnake, quite possibly. That keeps you from, a rattlesnake, I'm going to pet the rattlesnake. That fear is going to move you away from that. We want that. But when it becomes unresourceful is when it keeps triggering through unknown means, unknown triggers, because they're in the unconscious, because maybe it happened when we were 7. And the thing is these files, these unconscious memories are held in this filing cabinet and they get emotionalized because we want to get warned. The subconscious wants to warn us if there's danger. So that's the subconscious mind, this highly emotionalized mind trying to keep us safe and protected. The conscious mind, that's the logical mind, the analytical mind, the mind that sets up our goals for our life, the part of mind that sets up the plans to achieve those goals, plans for your day, plans for your week, your 5-year plan, and the willpower to go over those plans, go after those plans. And the problem comes in that what neuroscience says is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind, unconscious mind makes up 95% of mind. So when there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time. And so it doesn't have to be logical that you're feeling this anxiety. It doesn't have to be logical that you're feeling this fear or this anger. The emotional mind will win because it's trying to protect you. Maybe it's not very resourceful, not very resilient, but maybe that's what kept you safe as a child. Maybe that's what kept you safe as a kid. But it's not going to work when you're 20 or 30 or 50 or in your 80s. But the thing is, until the instructions get changed, why would anything change? It's just like computer programming. If you wrote an accounting program for your business and you accidentally put in there 2 + 2 = 5, it doesn't matter how much you type on your keyboard or slam your keyboard with your fists out of frustration or rant to your friend in anger about 2 + 2 = 5. It doesn't make any sense. Or take a Sharpie and write on your computer screen 2 + 2 = 4. It's not until you go into the code, you look for the error and you say, oh, there it is. That's weird. 2 + 2 = 5. Let's change it, amend it, edit it, delete it, whatever. Put in there 2 + 2 = 4, press save, and now all your equations equal up. And we work in a very similar way. This is computer programming. And if you want to change the software, you're allowed to. You're the one who put that in there. And that's not to say that it's your fault. It's not to say that it was fair. It's not to blame the victim, especially if you're a child. But you're the one who put that information into your subconscious mind in that way. And again, maybe to keep you safe. But it becomes very empowering because if you're the one who put it in there, that means you're the one who can change it. And that's what this work is great at, is by just relaxing the mind. You can do this work in a crowded airport under fluorescent lights at JFK where you are, if need be. If there's a problem, if someone's having a panic attack, you can certainly do this work in a huge crowded airport or something. But it's nicer when you're in a comfortable place, maybe at your home where you feel relaxed and comfortable and you're sitting back on the couch or recliner. Relaxes the body, relaxes the mind. And then as you quiet down that conscious level of mind, you can access the subconscious. And sometimes it's just as easy to ask, what is all this anxiety about? What's all the anger about? And your subconscious mind will tell you, oh, it's that thing that you thought it happened when you were 25 or you were 18 or something. But, oh, that thing that happened when I was 6. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then resolve it. You're allowed to do that. You have the power, you have the right, you have the ability to do it. It's just because of, unfortunately, what you're saying, NaRon, earlier, is just there's a lot of baggage to this work. And it's unfortunate because there's nothing magical or mystical about this. We're really not doing anything you're not doing already. We're all walking around in a state of hypnosis. If somebody's grabbing that cigarette, just like, I'm stressed, grab a cigarette, and the ritual of the lighter and the smacking on the pack and all the things one does to when they smoke, or grabbing that drink, or self-soothing by going on Instagram, or we all have these states of hypnosis, even if it's like getting in the zone. That state of hypnosis. Right now, when we're recording this, the Olympics are on. I can guarantee you every one of those athletes is putting themselves in a hypnosis state to focus singularly on whether it's swimming or gymnastics or surfing or whatever they're doing. They're focusing in a hypnotic trance state. We're all in some sort of trance state. Sometimes I'm in the trance state of being a father. Sometimes I'm in the trance state of being a son to my parents. And especially as you're older, you have these automatic reactions to your parents. Maybe it's positive, maybe it's not so positive. You hear, your mom's calling you on the phone. It's like, what's that feeling state? You get, are you excited that your mom's calling you? You get to talk to your mom? Or is it, oh my God, I just talked to you yesterday. That's an automatic, you're in a hypnotic trance state. And so a lot of this work isn't so much hypnotizing people as dehypnotizing them from their automatic reactions to the world and to life. But what I was going to say is, this work isn't magical. It's not mystical work. In fact, the word hypnosis comes from Greek mythology and the Greek god Hypnos, who's the Greek god of sleep, because back in the 1850s, there was a doctor in England, Dr. James Bard. And back in the 1850s, they didn't have fancy hospitals or fancy anesthesia or anything like that. back in the 1850s, you have to have your leg amputated. You're biting down on the stick. Yeah. It's like a blow to the head to knock you unconscious. And so what Dr. James Bard did, he was a surgeon. He started using a deep trance state to put people so far into trance, it'll look like they're in a coma. And then he could do amputations. He could cut people open with a knife and take out tumors. He could deal with war wounds and injuries and all sorts of things. Now, he certainly didn't invent the trance state. Certainly in Egypt and Greece and the Aboriginals of Australia and South America and India and all sorts of places, they're using trance in their religious work, their spiritual work, their healing work, thousands upon thousands of years ago. But Dr. James Bard in 1850 started using a trance state to put people in this coma-like state, needing a word to describe it to his colleagues and to write about it. He decided to name it after the Greek god of sleep. And so he called it hypnosis. And since then, over the last 170 years or so, this word hypnosis has grown to encompass all sorts of altered states of consciousness. And then that gets to be a strange turn of phrase, altered state of consciousness. But that's just any sort of state of mind that isn't the beta brainwave state, that state of consciousness. Now, again, really quickly, it takes 10 years to get a PhD in neuroscience and things, but real quickly, the famous brainwave states we learned about in school, beta, alpha, theta, delta. Beta is what you and I are in right now, NaRon. We're concentrating, we're having a discussion, we're talking to each other. And so we're firing about 18 cycles per second, beta brainwave state. And a wave is when all the neurons in your head fire to me. Right now, I'm waving around my arms, or somebody's walking down the street, or you're thinking a thought, feeling emotion. We're firing brain cells. Fires in a wave from back to front to back again. That's one wave. 18 waves per second is the beta brainwave state, somewhere around there. And let's say I'm back in high school math class and I'm paying attention because it's going to be on the test. It's important. I gotta do well in this test. Got to get a good grade on this test to do well in the class. So I'm paying attention and I'm writing down the notes, and the teacher's talking, and I can't take it, man. This math class is so boring. And so I start doing one of these. I start staring out the window and I go flat jawed, and I move inward and I start getting into that daydreamy state. And I'm thinking about the weekend. Oh, the weekend's going to come up. I'm going to hang out with my friends. We're going to go do all this cool stuff. And now I'm just staring out the window and I'm thinking about the future. Maybe I'm thinking about something in the past. Oh, I remember a couple months ago when we were doing that, and I moved inward and I turned off the external world. The teacher's still talking. Kids are still asking questions or acting up or whatever, but I've moved inward and I've now slowed down my brainwave state to maybe firing about 12 cycles per second. I moved into the alpha brainwave state. And then I start doing one of these, and my eyes are getting heavy. My head's drooping down. And I'm not really asleep, but I'm not really awake either. It's in that really luscious time zone of not really asleep or awake as you're falling asleep, or you're waking up on a Saturday morning, you get to lie in bed. And now I'm moving down into the theta brainwave state, firing about 6 cycles per second. Pretty soon I'm going to be asleep in delta, maybe firing at 1 or a half cycle per second. But the teacher sees me and says, "Hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board?" And I'm like, okay. So I jolt awake and I'm looking at the board, I'm looking at the equation, I'm looking at the kids staring at me. And I'm like, I'm stressed. I don't know how to do the problem on the board. I'm going to embarrass myself. Now I'm firing at 25 cycles per second because I'm in the stress response. And so just in the course of, 6-7 minutes, I've altered my state of consciousness 3 or 4 times just by being bored in high school math class. If you've ever had that experience, I was driving somewhere and you're like driving home and you start thinking about, I got people coming over this weekend. I got to get the house cleaned up. I got to get to the store and get the food. You start thinking about all the stuff you got to do for the weekend, or the meeting tomorrow at work, or the PowerPoint presentation you got to get, or the meeting with the investors. Start thinking about this. And all of a sudden you find yourself at home at your parking spot or your driveway or wherever, and you don't remember the last 5 blocks. You're just in a state of hypnosis, driving hypnosis. You put yourself in an altered state of consciousness. Watching TV puts you in the alpha brainwave state. Watching TV puts you in an altered state of consciousness. And so we don't do anything in this work of therapeutic hypnosis, hypnotherapy, that you really aren't doing already. We're just doing it on purpose and to change the code. That's me talking. I don't know. I think you might have asked a question about 15 minutes. I don't remember what the question was, but so I was like,
I learned a lot because right now there's being studying neuroscience, there's this like gateway of neuroplasticity between science and spirituality. And they're actually starting to see this bridge, which some people probably saw before, but they didn't. Now science is making it like a mainstream conversation where they are looking at me as being like a mindfulness coach and the work that we do. We didn't have all the language that you have to really talk about all those things. And they even now have classes about science and yoga and science and mindfulness and all of these things, because they're seeing that the effects that the work has on altering the brain state. But I want to talk quickly about the theta brain, the theta portion of the brain. Is that the part that you would really tap into? Because I'm doing these during my morning work. I do sounds, theta sounds.
Yeah.
Spend, they say 10 minutes, but I spend 20 minutes doing theta, 20 minutes doing pulling. Pulling, all the starts with a P. I'll get it.
Okay.
And it's that sound, listening for that. So when I'm doing that and I'm directly using sound to tap into that portion of the brain, first of all, I don't know if it really works or not. But,
that's the thing where you probably would have to hook yourself up to see, but it's really, you could probably just measure. Are you doing the binaural beats thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's a thing where if you're putting on headphones, I guess you could do it with speakers pointed at your ears, but where there's a beat in each speaker or each part of your headphone. So it's alternating between left brain and right brain, and it's off slightly. And so what it wants to do is harmonize your brain. So create one whole brain, because your brain is going to sync those beats together to harmonize it, because it can't stand it being out of sequence or like that. And so it puts you, the theory is that it'll move you into the theta brainwave state where healing happens. That's a great state to be in, that firing around 6 or so cycles per second. It's a very lush, but it's also a very deep trance state, if we want to use that word trance. And it's helpful to be in that state. A lot of the work I do, we can get into that lower level, but it's also oftentimes, because of the healing work we're doing, may be related to past trauma. I need to communicate with the person. And so when you go into those lower levels, like if you were in that level, like you put on the headphones, you got down to that theta brainwave state, I could say things to you, but you probably wouldn't be able to respond to me because your conscious mind is asleep, basically.
Yeah.
And so I can't give you negative suggestions. The mind doesn't accept negative suggestions in that way. Maybe over the course of time, they can be installed over years and such, but just to say, oh, and NaRon, you're going to assassinate the prime minister and then go rob a bank or something. I can't, that's not the way that works. But it does accept positive messages because your subconscious mind is for you. And I could say, while you're in that theta brainwave state, I would say, and NaRon, I wonder how you're going to absolutely have a wonderful day today, feeling more confident and more joy. And I wonder how you're going to build more joy into your life. And now the subconscious, I wonder how I am going to build more joy into my life.
And then it starts to act. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's going to create an answer to that. Your subconscious mind wants to create answers, find solutions. And so what's the solution to creating more joy in your life? Oh, I guess if I meditated twice a day, if I did 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the afternoon. And also if I can, come up with something. If I've exercised more or whatever the thing is, your mind will come up with what you need to do. But what also I tell people while we're doing this work, all right, now take a deep breath in. And when you're ready to go into this healing hypnosis, close your eyes and just allow your subconscious mind to take you to the level you need to be at today to do this healing work. It's up to you where you go. Because I don't know where you need to go.
Yeah, because we don't know
what's super deep, then go super deep. If you don't need to go super deep, then don't go. It's what you need to do. And that's what I like about this work is I'm not here to fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in and of itself is not fixing you, but you're going to fix yourself. Again, it's a great tool to have in your toolbox, like you said at the beginning, but it's not a tool that I'm going to use to fix you. You're going to use it to fix yourself.
And so now the person, if they have a great understanding, they're taking ownership in the process. So they don't look at you as the mystical guru.
Yeah. Or, and often people, they see us as the witch doctor because we're usually the therapy of last resort. And there's everything up. And they'll say that. I spent years in talk therapy. I've done EDMR and it helps, but I still feel this weight, this heaviness, this pain, this anger. And I don't know why. And okay, let's figure it out.
So I'm sorry to cut you.
Oh, no.
The part of the brain that I was talking about, pituitary?
Oh, pituitary gland. Yeah.
Yeah, the pituitary gland.
Yeah. There's a lot of information is coming out about the brain over the last 20 years, let alone 40 years. We really didn't know a lot about the brain until very recently because we couldn't watch the brain. All we knew about the brain is what we could in the 60s and 70s, even before that, but 1960s, 70s, 80s, the only thing we really could understand about the brain is what we learned from sociological kind of research and autopsies. And that was it. It wasn't until we got like MRIs and SPECT scans and all this stuff where now you can go on YouTube and watch your brain cells connecting together and pulling apart called pruning. And because we can now watch the brain in real time, in meditation, I don't know where it is. I have this great, you can look it up on Google. There's a great National Geographic cover. I wish I had it here, somewhere in a box, but of a Tibetan monk hooked up with all the electrodes all over his head because they're measuring what it is to be, if you've meditated 7 hours a day for 30 years, what does your brain look like? What does it look like in meditation? That's how they found the gamma brainwave state.
Gamma brain.
Yeah. So before we thought, the brain somewhere between 30 cycles per second and 1 when you're in sleep. That's what the brain does until these researchers hooked up some of these monks from Tibet, brought them over and started doing this research with the permission of the Dalai Lama. And they wanted to watch the brain of a meditator and found they didn't go down into alpha and theta. They went up to firing 100 cycles per second into what they now call gamma brainwave state, GAMA. And this is the zone. This is what we're talking about, like when an athlete gets in zone, or like a performer, a singer, a dancer, when they get into that creative zone, or like even anybody listening, you're doing your project. Maybe it's a business project even, and all of a sudden it's 3 hours later and you didn't realize it's been so long because you were just concentrated focus. You are not slowing down your brainwave, so you're more than likely making it go spin faster, that wave go faster. And that's the zone. That's when you're in that creative peak. And you can get that in doing meditation.
I was reading a book called Deep Work.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about being in the zone in that gamma state. Yeah. And one of the things that he points out is that one is not a state that a person actually can stay in for a long time. So don't get upset when you get distracted.
Right.
So once you remove that option, why am I getting distracted? That's the way that the brain works, right?
Yep.
But if you can find periods out of your week where you can get in that zone for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and that's when you want to do your creative work. That's
Yeah.
when you don't want to be answering emails. You don't want to be doing that stuff that you're going to do anyway, right? That stuff that you want to be able to now write your book. You want to be now creating your course. You want to be now, and if you start scheduling that time, your brain now starts to adapt that this is the time that we're going to start doing this, and it starts to crave it. So to say.
And you notice writers will do that, or even songwriters will say from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., I'm going to just write. Then I'm going to take a break. And then from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., I'm going to write. And then that's it. I'm done. That's my work day. And yeah, of course, obviously you're in New York, obviously tons of creative people in New York or Chicago or San Francisco, Tokyo, these huge cities, London, Paris. But oftentimes you'll hear, okay, I need to write my new album. So I went off into the woods. I went into a retreat. Or you'll hear, we used to record in LA all the time, but then we decided to do something different. So we went to Colorado and went out into this great recording studio out into the woods. And so we wanted or the south of France or wherever one goes to record. And you'll find that some of the creative people, even if they live in like a major hub of creativity and busyness, like New York City or Chicago or Tokyo or wherever, or London, they can be creative there, but sometimes just, I got to get someplace new. I got to get someplace different. And there is something about being in nature and getting away from that and getting to that more peaceful state that allows you to maybe move up into those higher levels. Certainly you can meditate in New York and London and Paris and Chicago, but you often notice those retreats centers are off in nature to be in a more peaceful phase. So you put all that other stuff behind you.
I taught at a retreat center in Colorado. It was my first time being there, which is why I asked you about the air. It was my first time in Colorado, beautiful city. And when we got to the retreat center, everything was tranquil, and you could feel the difference once we started riding up that mountain and get into like the place. You're like, oh man, you can feel that there was a transformation, and you can feel it from within.
Yeah,
and especially if you have any type of depth of sensitivity. As it relates to the hypnosis, the hypnotic state, and who should be seeking a hypnotherapist. Let's say we're not making this the last thing that we do. It's not the last resort. Hey, you're at the top of the food chain. Who should be contacted?
In terms of wanting to do this work, if you're struggling, if you're hurting, if you're in pain, and you don't know why, that's a great way to do it. Look, there's a lot of help can be done with talk therapy. If you've experienced yourself, NaRon, and your listeners have, and I myself have, I think it's very helpful, very useful, and very healing. It's always good to talk to somebody, and sometimes a family member or a friend, they have a certain bias, and maybe they're not as adept to listening as a professional is, and hearing you, and then you just said this, whereas 5 minutes ago you said that. They can do that kind of thing. And that's why that's helpful. It's always great to have a second pair of eyes on something. Every success in whatever it is, again, right now we're in the Olympics. So I guarantee you every Olympic athlete has a coach, if not 2 or 3. Look at a baseball player, or they have a hitting coach, they have a running coach, they have a throwing coach, they have a nutritionalist, they have a physical therapist. They have all these people to help them win the World Series and become a champion. And of course, you got to do that with business too. You're going to want a marketing coach. You're going to want, if you're building your business and you're staying at the beginning, man, I got to fire some people, or I got to build it up. I got to hire some people. Who do I know who to hire? You're going to want to get a coach to help you hire the right people, or reorganize your business, or grow it from 2 people business to 100-person in 100 place. So you want to coach. So it's always great to have that second pair of eyes. Talk therapy is great, but it's also, if you don't know what the problem is, what are you talking about? And that's where hypnotherapy comes in. If there's that anger or that anxiety or that fear, hypnotherapy can help with that because you do know what the problem is. Or maybe it could be a thing where you have to fly for business a lot. And maybe there was that one flight that wasn't great. You hit all that turbulence. And now there's this fear of getting on an airplane, but you got to be on an airplane 3-4 times a week. Hypnotherapy can help you with that. Or you just want confidence, or you got to give the presentation at the or you got to give the speech at the big conference coming up next month. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know how I got talked into this. Why am I giving the keynote speech? And you start getting nervous about it because maybe back in the 6th grade, you gave that history report and didn't go well. And now there's a subconscious code that says it's unsafe to be in front of people. Because when you gave that history report in the 6th grade, the kids laughed because you stammered and tripped over your words and your pictures were upside down or whatever. And they giggle and laugh because that's what kids do. And that encoded within you that it's unsafe to be in front of people. Now you're 45 years old and you've been tapped to give the keynote speech at the conference. They're like, great, that'll be great for my business. It'll be great for promoting some of my ideas. And then you think, and you agree to it and you're like, oh, wait a minute. That feels unsafe to me. I'm really nervous. I don't want to do it now. Hypnotherapy can help with that. Just building confidence. So many athletes are using these techniques. Maybe they don't exactly call it hypnosis. Maybe they call it guided visualization or mental rehearsal or whatever they want to call it. But I guarantee you, everybody, I mean, especially right now in an Olympic Village, is spending some time in mental rehearsal every day. Just visualizing themselves crossing the finish line first, or they're gymnasts doing gymnastics, or they're writing their routine in their minds, because that's literally wiring it into your head by practicing.
It's just silence in that. So I do the 20 minutes sound.
Yeah.
And I do another 20 minutes of sound just for that brain. And what I can say, because I'm taking a diary, because this is something that I've been working. I teach mindfulness and stuff. So I want to be able to give different experiences. So I have to go through it myself.
Yeah.
And then I spend 30 minutes in silence.
Oh, yeah. I think it's super important. Especially, they were doing silent meditations thousands of years ago. I can't imagine with all the information we're getting blasted with every day between social media and the news and TV and phones and everything. We're constantly wired to something. So I think unplugging from that for a half an hour a day is extraordinary. I think that can only be helpful.
It helps with my concentration.
Yeah.
I find it also concentration.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think the mind and body get overwhelmed with all of it. And really, if you look at it, when did TV come out? In the 1940s, 1950s? And now look at it. So what was it? The TV only lasted from like 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. They didn't have enough shows to run TV 24 hours a day. And then they got 3 channels and 4 channels. And then they started going till midnight. And then they started going 24 hours. And now, we have 500 channels, let alone all the streaming services, let alone all the social media, let alone all the video games, let alone all the music. We have access to pretty much every single piece of recorded music that's ever been out there since the late 1800s. And we have so much information at our fingertips. When I was doing book report or history report back in school, I had to look it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica. That was our internet. But now, you have so much information. My son was born in the year 2000, and they were saying as he was growing up, he's 3-4 years old, talking about preschool and things, are like, this is going to be the first generation that has to have a laptop for school, and are going to send homework via email. And it was true. And I don't know what to do with that. That's not my generation.
And it's funny, sorry, cross
Oh
question.
no, go ahead. Yeah.
But it's funny that when these new technological advances come out, like I was dead set against Facebook and MySpace. I didn't have a MySpace. I didn't have none of that stuff. But then it got to the point where I had to have it. And we go in saying, I can't learn this stuff.
Yeah.
My mom trying to figure out how to text. Now she don't stop texting. She actually prefer to text.
Yeah.
Dad, I sent you a text. You're like, I don't know how to use that. Now, like, then prefer, oh, don't call me, just text. Just a few months ago. So it's the resistance to new technology, the resistance to advancement comes from within, and it actually comes from fears, which is my last question.
Sure. Yeah.
Is concerning fear. When I was coming up, I was definitely afraid of dogs. Dog would come in and I don't know where it came from. I never seen it wasn't like it was a rehearsed thing. I saw someone else.
Right. Yeah.
Or that maybe I saw a dog bite somebody. I don't know. Maybe a dog ran at me and I just don't remember. But I was met my wife. She loved dogs.
Yeah.
Would go visit. I was like, oh, come on, keep the dog away. Then it's like, hey, it's the dog. And that was fear really, did it ever exist? I got 2 dogs, you know what I mean?
Well, you also remember, especially if it's a Labrador or German Shepherd or something, you're a little kid, you're eye to eye with that thing. And these things look pretty scary if you're eyeball to eyeball, let alone the dog's bigger than you. And so that can be, especially if it jumped at you, even if it was on a leash and it jumped at you and they, oh no, you back up, you were safe, but it's also, that's scary. Yeah. Even as an adult, a dog charging you is scary. And so again, that's an irrational fear. That's a very rational fear. People get hurt by being bit by dogs. That's a thing. So it's not an irrational fear. Being afraid to be on a plane is not irrational. But it's just, can you resolve that in a way that you can feel safe around dogs and maybe even have one in your house? Yeah, maybe all you did was saw a TV show. As a kid, you walked through, wasn't even your TV show. Your parents were watching, or your big older brother or something was watching a TV show. You just walked through at the wrong time when the dog was being unleashed on the prisoner or whatever, or the war movie. And it was just a tiny little scene in a movie, but you just walked by at the wrong time, saw it, and like, whoa. And then that implanted in your head, those things are dangerous. And that's a legitimate instruction. Keep yourself safe. But if it's not resourceful anymore, if it doesn't help you move through life in a resilient way, then maybe it's time to change it. Yeah. Again, don't get rid of the fear that a rattlesnake's a dangerous creature. Don't forget that a hot pot on the stove is going to burn your hand. You want to keep that kind of wisdom. And yeah, be careful of some dogs, because maybe they're a little skittish or afraid, or they get scared too. So you need that certain amount of anxiety, but you need a certain amount of stress just to get out of the bed in the morning to get to work on time. But you need a certain amount of stress to get to your peak performance, to get that report done, or get the PowerPoint presentation, or practice your speech for the conference. So there's a certain amount of stress gets you to your peak performance, but after a certain amount, then it just dives into anxiety, and then you become useless. A certain amount of fear is going to keep you alive, keeps you from petting the rattlesnake or charging the dog that seems to be afraid and is a little unhinged. Or walk, again, like the example a while ago, walking down the dark alley at midnight. A certain amount of fear is healthy and keeps you alive. But again, when it becomes unresourceful and not very resilient to you, where now a little little tiny dogs you're backing away from. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that's not the best. And it's keeping something from you, a joy from, because maybe now you love having dogs in the house. So it's just a matter of if you're feeling it's hindering your progress and your growth and your success in life, just do something about it. It's really up to you. I would just follow your intuition. If you feel like there's people who love snakes, people who probably have rattlesnakes as pets. I don't know. But for me, that's something I don't want to deal with. I just use your intuition. If you feel it's hindering your progress, either mentally or emotionally or spiritually or in your relationships or in business, that you feel you need a little more confidence, feel you need a little less anxiety and fear, then yeah, maybe that'd be something to look into, working with a hypnotherapist. Yeah. It's probably a good place.
That was a great one. Last one. What books are we reading?
Oh my God. I am actually, for the first time in my life, okay, not the first time, I actually went to a nonfiction book, but what was interesting is lately I've been researching, I'm doing a trip to England.
Okay.
Here. Craig Meriwether, you don't get more English than that. We're going to visit a church in Long Stratton, which is in the east of England, east of London by a couple of hours. Going to visit a church there that my great-grandfather was rector of. He was a priest at this church in 1620.
Wow.
And I've been reading a lot of kind of history of England and of Christianity back then and back in the days. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just started a fiction book for the first time in many years, but mainly I've been reading some history stuff.
So you have Catholic roots,
Episcopal roots, Baptist education, and
a Catholic foreparent.
And I'm probably he was probably Protestant back England, 1620. That was after, that's after they broke from the Catholic Church. But yeah, it's all over.
What did Protestant Reform or Protestant Lutheran?
Oh God, Lord, I don't know. It's probably was the Henry VIII thing of breaking from the church. So Protestant, and then so I'm reading up on Celtic Christianity and what was happening in Ireland and Scotland and all sorts of places. So it's interesting what was going on way back when.
The Armenians. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, NaRon, it was fun to talk with you. I had a great time.
Yeah, this was great. Listen, everyone, you could walk still acting out of fear, still believing in myths concerning stuff that we would probably see that would probably planted in our mind, in our subconscious thoughts. Or you can seek out help and move hypnotherapy from the bottom of the line and etch it up just a little bit higher. And do that thing that will help you get over your fears, but most of all, help you to walk in victory. Listen, we don't ask for much, but we do ask that you hit subscribe. That helps us to get to the algorithms, helps our show to be seen and heard. We also, I'm going to keep repeating this, we have a blog now, and we also have a YouTube page where we put our best clips and information for you to digest in small bites. So go and check that out. Everything is Walk in Victory. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
This has been another episode of Walk in Victory podcast, where we sit you at the feet of the masters. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found inspiration and valuable insights to apply to your own life. If you did, please show us some love by liking and subscribing to the podcast. Your support helps us reach more people and share more stories of triumph over adversity. Until next time, keep walking towards victory. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes glimpses of our episodes.